Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Funders Together webinar on National Youth Homelessness Initiatives. I'm Lauren Bennett. I'm the Communications Manager here at Funders Together, and I just really want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for what we think will be a really informative webinar. So today we're going to take a look at the various national initiatives focused on ending youth homelessness that are happening across the country, and then we're also going to touch on the Funders Together, the new Funders Together Youth Network, and the various opportunities through that you'll be able to learn and network within this group. But before we get started, we always have to go over just a few housekeeping items. So all participants are on mute, and everyone will remain on mute throughout the rest of the presentation. However, if you do have a question during the presentation, you are more than welcome to type it into the question box on your webinar panel, and this is located on the right-hand side of your computer screen, and the question box looks like this. You can enter a question at any time, but just so you know, we will be saving all content-related questions for the end of our panelist presentation. So finally, since I know this question will be asked, this presentation will be recorded. Because we want this to be a space for candid discussion amongst funders, the presentation will only be made available to Funders Together members on the past events page of our website. You will have to log in to view this, so if you have any issues doing that, please feel free to email me. Again, I'm Lauren, and you can email me at lauren@funderstogether.org. So now I'd like to go ahead and introduce our full panel today. We're really excited. We have quite a few people on, so I'm going to keep the introductions very brief. So first of all, we have Megan Gibbard, and she's the Director of Away Home America. We're also joined by Amy Hendrigan. She's the Vice President of Programs at Melville Charitable Trust. It's also a pleasure to have Katie Hong. She's the Director of Youth Homelessness at the Rakes Foundation. Our very own Jennifer Olney is also with us, and she is the Network Program Manager here at Funders Together. We're also delighted to have Ann Morin. She's a Program Officer at the Butler Family Fund. And last but certainly not least, Casey Truppen. She's a Program Officer of Youth Homelessness at the Rakes Foundation. So Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and get us kicked off?
Sure. So like Lauren said, thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to tell you a little bit more about Funders Together's new youth network and what we have planned for this year. So before we get into the national initiatives updates, I'm just going to share a little bit about that the new youth network and kind of how we got here and where we're going. Next slide, please. The new youth network is in response to a desire from our members to continue the learning that happened during Foundations for Youth Success. And Foundations for Youth Success was a 2-year community of practice around youth homelessness that allowed a group of funders to come together and learn and network, and then ultimately to identify and implement best practices for youth and young adults experiencing homelessness. Next slide, please. During Foundations for Youth Success, we hosted webinars, we hosted in-person convenings, and we had virtual discussions that allowed funders to learn together and also to share their own work with each other. So the recordings from the webinars, the highlights from the in-person convenings, and the resources that were created by this group are now on Funders Together's website, funderstogether.org. So you can see on your screen, this is the page that has all of those learnings in one place. If you go to funderstogether.org to our main page, you can click on the Funder Toolkit in the upper left-hand corner. You can see it there. And then you can click on Youth Homelessness, and that will take you to a page that has all of the resources that we compiled during this community, partner resources, member resources, and it also has a link to this page that is specific to the community learnings. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to check out those resources. There are webinars and resources on anything from child welfare and juvenile justice to host homes, and then just some peer exchanges with members of that community. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So like I said, we're really excited to launch this new youth network and to add some new funders to the group, the Foundations for Youth Success group that just concluded last year. The goal of this network is really to provide a space for you to come together with your peers and to share your ideas, your challenges, your successes, and also have a place to ask questions. So this is the calendar that we've put together for our first year with the youth network. As you can see, the first thing on there is this webinar, so here we are. The next thing is our youth network listserv, and we're going to be launching this in May, so in just about a month. This will be a place where you can email one email address and send a question, an idea, an opportunity to everyone in the youth network. And instead of getting a million responses back to you and to everyone else in the network, we will compile the responses and then send them out to the network in one easy email, so you have all of that information in one place. So if you have a question about rapid rehousing for youth, you can send it to this network and get some responses from your peers, and then we will compile those responses and send them back out so that everyone can see them. So just keep an eye out if you're interested in joining the youth network. We will be sending out more information about this listserv soon, and then we'll be launching it, like I said, in May. The next thing on here is an update on the youth demonstration projects. This will be a webinar at the end of the summer. That is something that you're going to hear about more in just a minute, and it's really just getting started, but we do want to make sure that we keep you up to date. And the end of the summer is when we think there'll be some more information to share about the planning process. So this webinar will probably be some of our members that were a part of Foundations for Youth Success and who are participating in these projects in their communities, sharing what they've done so far, the planning process, and then where they're going from there. So hopefully that'll give you some information that you can find helpful for your community as well. And then last but not least is our Cleveland site visit, which we're really excited about. Site visits were one of the things that we did during the Foundations for Youth Success community, that when we did the evaluation at the end, participants said that these were really valuable and one of the really important parts of the community. So during these site visits, not only do you have a chance to visit a place that's really doing incredible work to end youth homelessness, you also have an opportunity to meet with your peers face-to-face and to have those informal conversations and build relationships that really make this network and this group strong moving forward. We also will take some time to have discussions with this network, so just funder-to-funder discussions, do some planning, and really cover topics that you want to talk about. So I am going to turn it quickly over to Angela D'Orazio, who is in Cleveland. She's going to be our host for this meeting. She is with Sisters of Charity, and Sisters of Charity has been really helping to lead the community in their work over the past few years, and they also participated in one of the recent 100-day challenges, which you'll also hear a little bit more about in just a minute. So Angela, if you're there, do you want to share a little bit about what you've been doing and what we can expect in Cleveland?
Thanks, Jennifer, and hi, everyone. We're really excited to have the opportunity to host the first Youth Network site visit here in Cleveland. We're very committed to really planning a very useful and informative 2 days or 1.5 days here. And while the agenda is still under development, we're really looking forward to sharing how our community has come together since 2014 through the A Place for Me initiative, which is our local collaborative effort committed to preventing and ending youth homelessness. That initiative was seeded by the Sisters of Charity Foundation of Cleveland and the Jim Case Youth Opportunities Initiative back in 2013, and to date has engaged nearly 50 public and private partners to align their resources and services to better serve homeless and unstably housed young adults in our community. So our work here, I think many of you know, includes significant involvement and investment from our local child welfare agency to improve housing outcomes for youth aging out of foster care. In 2015, A Place for Me concluded a 10-month planning effort and shared the first community plan to prevent and end youth homelessness in Cuyahoga County. We will be updating that plan to capture sort of the evolution of our work in the last 18 months to two years, and we'll have the updated new and improved plan in time for the site visit in September. So we'll be happy and looking forward to sharing that with all of you. We also look forward to sharing lessons learned from our community's participation in the initial heat of the 100-day challenges to end youth homelessness, which was coordinated by Away Home America and the Rapid Results Institute. And finally, we do hope to plan some informative site visits to local provider agencies throughout Cleveland and Cuyahoga County for members of the Youth Network to have the opportunity to hear directly from frontline staff members and of course from young adults themselves who are involved in this work with us and benefiting from the services in a more coordinated fashion. So again, the agenda is still under development, but we're open to thoughts and suggestions. If there's anything in particular that we can highlight to make this really meaningful for people, please feel free to share your thoughts with me and or Jennifer, and we'll do our best to accommodate. And again, just thank you so much for the opportunity. We're really looking forward to it.
Thanks, Angela. So during Foundations for Youth Success, we asked participants where they wanted to go for these site visits. And Cleveland was one that came up quite a few times, and unfortunately we just weren't able to get there during that community. So we're really excited to go now and to welcome all of you to join us. Like Angela said, this network and all of Funders Together's work is really to help you. So if there's something that you want to see or something that you're really interested in, please let us know, whether it's for the site visit, for webinars, or just if we can help connect you to someone. That's what this Youth Network's all about. So if you're interested in joining the Youth Network, please send me an email and let me know so that I can make sure you're on our mailing list and I can make sure that you're getting on the listserv and getting all communications and opportunities and resources. And if you already know from Angela's little short blurb there that you want to join us in Cleveland because they've been doing some really incredible work that you want to hear more about, that event is up on the Funders Together website and you can register now. We will have a limited group going with us, so it is first come, first serve. So if you know you want to come, please do register as soon as possible. And like Angela said, we're in the process of developing an agenda and we'll be sharing that with you as soon as possible. Next slide. All right, I just want to take a few seconds here before we move on and hear about some other work happening across the country to answer any questions you have about the Youth Network or about anything we have planned for 2017. And you can put those questions in the chat box or in the question box on your control panel.
Jennifer, one question that we do have is, if I'm not a member of Funders Together to End Homelessness, but I want to join the Youth Network, how do I go about doing that?
So the Youth Network is open to Funders Together members. So in order to join the Youth Network, you will need to become a Funders Together member. And if you are not already a member and want more information about that, please reach out to one of us on staff. My email is jennifer@funderstogether.org, and you can find the rest of our staff on the website. But please reach out and we're happy to provide some more information about membership and how you can become a part of the Youth Network.
Great. Another question is, for the September convening, can funders bring community partners or is it only open to funders?
So the convening is only open to funders. We would be happy to help think through ways that you can take resources back to your community, but for the in-person meetings, it really is just funders. But that's a great question.
Okay, and I think that's all the questions we have for right now.
Okay, and we're going to open it up for questions at the end, so if you think of something else, feel free to put it in your chat box and we'll get to it then. Until then, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Megan Gibbard with Away Home America, and she is going to talk about Away Home America and the 100-day challenges.
Great. How's the sound, everybody?
Sound great.
Hi there. Can folks hear me okay?
You sound great.
Great. Wonderful. Let's advance the slide and we'll get going here. For the next 5 minutes or so, and let me get this out of the way, we'll share a little bit of some updates from Away Home America related to practice activities. The first slide is really just a summary of what we are up to over the next number of months in 2017 in the practice area. As a quick reminder, Away Home America organizes our efforts under policy, practice, and communications, and all of these efforts are intended to build the movement and to really catalyze our national efforts to end youth homelessness community by community. Let me start with just a quick overview. We have just announced there will be 10 additional 100-day challenges, and I'll go into more detail about who can express interest and what the next steps will be there. Other efforts include encouraging collaboration among efforts to create coordinated community responses. So what we mean by that is really a number of months ago, Away Home America realized not only did we have the HUD demonstration launching, but we anticipated 10 additional 100-day challenges. We know there are efforts like Sparks or Tipping Point that are also doing work in local communities, and none of that was really well networked. So Away Home America, as an effort to build the movement, is doing a number of things to encourage collaboration among those efforts. So we don't have really remarkable work happening in a corner of the United States that nobody's hearing about. I'll share a bit more about that as well. We have a progress project that will launch soon about a movement building community dashboard. That work really borrows from the Community Solutions Zero work, and I have an example of that I can share. And all of that truly is to help us together identify and spread conditions in communities that cause considerable forward progress. And I'll share a bit more about that too. Let's do next slide. Great. So the great news is that we have 10 more 100-day challenges that will launch here soon. I am currently actually at the launch of 3 100-day challenges across Washington State, and I'm certain that the Rakes Foundation may chat a little bit more about that. We have also had 3 100-day challenges in Austin, Cleveland, and LA, and there is a link in your slide to an overview of that process and an overview of the results. Those challenges concluded at the end of December 2016. The HUD funded 10 more 100-day challenges, and those challenges will launch in 2 heats of 5. We expect that the first 5 communities HUD funded will launch in June, if we can make that happen, or around June. And the communities that can express interest in that opportunity have until next Friday to do so. And the criteria is that communities must have applied for the HUD youth demonstration, not have been awarded that demonstration, so we're not one of the 10 communities awarded, but they met threshold criteria. If you have questions on if a community that you are working with might be might have met threshold criteria, just let me know. All of those communities that did apply for the youth demo were not selected and did meet threshold criteria. There's over 60 of those communities received an email from me last week inviting them to express interest in launching a 100-day challenge. Those challenges are a partnership with HUD, obviously, that I mentioned, funding those 10 communities, Away Home America as the movement megaphone, if you will, trying to share this work as broadly as we can across the country. Homebase is the TA provider that is contracting directly with HUD, and they are subcontracting with Rapid Results that's doing the partnership. So that's a little bit of the cooks in the kitchen and who can express interest there. Let's do next slide. So 100-day challenges is, I think, one of the efforts that is perhaps most visible in the practice space that Away Home America has launched in the next year. There's a good bit that we are doing a little more behind the scenes, and some of that is encouraging collaboration. So our goal is on the slide there. All of our work is to build the movement to end youth homelessness, and we had realized that not all of the TA providers working in communities need to be experts, and that many of the TA providers are actually doing really specific and tailored work with some communities, and that we can, if we can collaborate among those providers, we can get much farther. So specifically, what that looks like is Away Home America is gathering monthly calls of TA providers working across the country. Those are HUD funded, HHS funded, as well as privately funded TA providers. And part of what we're doing on those calls is case consults, if you will, of talking through what situations those providers are running into in communities, what seems to be working well, so that we can all learn together. The other thing that we are doing is convening communities themselves. The Save the Date will go out a little bit later today. We have a first convening of youth homelessness demonstration communities, those 10, that will happen on May 24th. Corresponding with the CSH Summit in Denver. So communities that are the youth demonstration communities that want to attend that half-day session to meet the other communities, they don't have to register for the CSH event, but it's a great opportunity to do both of those things. So in terms of encouraging collaboration, hosting monthly calls with TA providers so that they can all be talking to one another and learning alongside each other, and then convening the communities, in particular the youth homelessness demonstration communities, to learn from and to meet and support one another. Do next slide. So a huge shout out to Community Solutions and their Zero work. The other effort that Away Home America is launching is a community dashboard. You'll see an example of what that may look like on the screen in front of you. This is a draft and should have draft written all over it. Away Home America will be inviting up to 20 communities to, over the course of 2017, opt into entering monthly data from their community into this dashboard. Things like how many young people are active on your by name list, what's the housing situation of those young people, and what types of housing placements are they exiting to. And you'll see on the right-hand corner there, is there parity among youth of color and LGBT youth in terms of who's waiting for housing and who's actually getting housing. Over time, we also want to add into this look, this dashboard, who are the young people that are returning to homelessness, and we know that that will take us a bit of time for most communities. So the point of this dashboard truly is to start as a waypoint toward the USICH criteria and benchmarks. We know that that work is underway, and Away Home America is trying to ask communities that are front runners who may already be collecting some of this community to opt into sharing with one another and sharing with the movement this snapshot so that we can iterate quickly and really be that waypoint, be some of that iteration on the way to criteria and benchmarks that will be shared among all communities. Go to the next slide. So really all of this, and I'll close here, these efforts, both launching 100-day challenges, convening TA providers that are working in local communities, hosting this dashboard and inviting communities to participate and to lead the movement, all of these efforts are designed to identify drivers, identify conditions in communities that are causing significant forward momentum. So the example on the screen here is the quarterly placement of veterans into permanent housing. If we are looking at the same information, if we have regular collaboration across all of these efforts, we will notice together, boy, Austin is really having an increase in their placement. What happened there? And how can we spread that driver, that condition that really caused tremendous progress in the last quarter of this year? That's a bit of the theory behind what we're doing. And I'll pause there. I'm looking forward to the discussion and looking forward to any questions folks have. I'm also going to introduce Amy of the Melville Charitable Trust. And Amy, are you unmuted and you want to take things away?
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Megan. Hi, everyone. I am going to give a brief update about what's going on with the HUD Youth Homelessness Demonstration projects. Next slide, please. I'm Amy from the Melville Trust. And what the HUD Youth Homelessness Demo offers to 10 communities is $33 million. Communities could apply for between $1 and $15 million. HUD targeted 10 sites, 6 urban, 4 rural. And the idea is that communities would have an opportunity to implement new and innovative projects, try new things, try new housing models, try new service models. And HUD is also providing technical assistance for these 10 communities. So the application process happened last year. I believe the applications were due in November, and I believe there were about 130 communities that applied, so it was quite competitive. Next slide, please. What the applications required was that folks showed that they had a broad array of partners. It was really critical that people had a youth advisory board, and that they were tied and showed real connection to their local child welfare agencies. The idea is that these communities are going to develop a coordinated community plan to prevent end-use homelessness over the period of the demo. Those participating in the demo would then be required to also participate in a program evaluation. And so the idea was, as I mentioned, that communities would use this funding for different programs for housing and services, rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and to fund innovative programs and new things like host homes, because to really build the body of knowledge about what works and what is working in youth homelessness. So this is a really significant investment by HUD and really shows the commitment that the federal government has to ending youth homelessness by 2020. So it's a very exciting opportunity, but only for 10 communities. And the 10 communities were announced in January. I think that's on my next slide. So this is probably old news to some of you, but if not, these were the 10 communities selected, 4 rural and 6 urban. The trust where I work funds in Connecticut as well as nationally. So we were really excited that Connecticut BOS means balance of state. The funding for this project goes through a community's continuum of care. So the Connecticut continuum of care is the BOS, which almost includes the whole state, but doesn't include Fairfield County, which is the southwestern corner of the state. So it's almost a statewide plan for Connecticut. I know there's a couple other places, I think Ohio, it's the whole state of Ohio, but some places it's just, a smaller community, and in the rural areas it's definitely much smaller. So if you add those up on the side, that does equal 33 million. I actually did that to make sure. I was curious, so in Connecticut, I'm involved with the planning that's going on around next steps to create the community plan. So next slide, please. So the next steps for these communities, the big kind of deadline coming up is July 13th, which is 6 months from the announcement of the winners, where folks have to complete their community plan that shows coordinated efforts to ending youth homelessness. HUD has contracted with several technical assistance providers that each location has a specific technical assistance team. Some teams are doing more than one site. Those technical assistance providers include CSH, Corporation for Supportive Housing, APT Associates, TAC, Technical Assistance Collaborative, Homebase, ICF International. So each team there's a long list of what TA providers can and cannot do. Just as an interesting fact, they are not allowed to write the plan for the community. The community has to do that themselves, but they are allowed to help them conceptualize and plan for writing the plan. So up to 30% of the funds allocated for a community may be used and requested for project planning to do the final plan. The final plan, I believe, is due in January. I will say some insider information. HUD has had a little bit of a hiccup in getting those planning funds out and allocated. Even though the initial plan is due in July, planning funds have not come out yet. So that's a little bit of a hiccup, and hopefully they'll be getting through that in the next month or so. And the requests for planning and implementation going forward are made on a rolling basis, and the application is through the COC in the community. And so they just kind of, the rules are pretty basic. That you do have to keep including your youth advisory board and your public child welfare agencies, as you said you would. They're going to keep checking to make sure that you're engaging all the folks that you said in your collaboration chart in your application, and participating in the evaluation as that goes forward. And one thing I heard, I was able to be on one of the calls, the first calls with HUD, is that they really do want folks to try new things and not just be funding programs that they already have in their communities. So there's real thirst for innovation and knowledge, and I think that's a real opportunity and really exciting for those communities, but certainly for the field, and keeping folks moving forward on our really pretty tight deadline if we're all sticking to ending homelessness by 2020. So that's my quick update on that, and I'll be happy to answer questions after all the other folks have presented. Next up is Casey Trupin, and he'll be talking about the American Bar Association's work in youth homelessness.
Great, thank you, Amy. I'll be relatively quick, even though this is a robust set of summits and initiatives. I've thrown a lot of stuff up on the screen just to give people something to look at other than the green wall behind me. Last year, on the heels of an international summit on legal and policy issues related to homeless youth, HHS and the American Bar Association convened a set of discussions around state law and policy efforts, as well as administrative efforts at the national level that relate to homeless youth. And as you can see from that slide, the areas basically broke down into 6 different areas: access to justice, identification, criminalization, public system responsibility, and I'll talk about that more, employment and education. And those were similar issues that were raised at the international summit that seem to be coming up, not just in the United States, but around the world. Those 2 summits were in January and September, have now led to a more robust partnership between HHS, the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, and the American Bar Association. The goals generally were to develop recommendations for state and local action, including very concrete steps that local, state, and federal agencies could actually take to address barriers in this year as well as last year. And then the second way, the second goal of the summit was to identify specific ways that lawyers and judges and other members of the bar could contribute to reducing youth homelessness, both at the individual level by advocating for individual youth, as well as engaging in systemic advocacy. There were very specific commitments made at those summits, and there is a commitment by our federal partners to check in on those commitments, as well as to use that as an opportunity to move forward. But with the transition in the administration, that obviously there is some delay. Just quickly in those 5 areas and access to justice, some things have come up either alongside that or as a result of the summit. The American Bar Association's incoming president is making the issue of homeless youth one of her big issues. And the American Bar Association is launching the Homeless Youth Legal Network and Homeless Youth Legal Network Pro Bono. And that is basically an attempt to make sure that all of the legal agencies that are providing support to homeless youth around the country are connected, that they're promoting best practices, that they're elevating promising practices and helping providers and other communities connect to the legal world to provide services to homeless youth. That has already started, and that effort is moving forward. And if you know of a provider that is not connected to that effort in your area, please do contact the American Bar Association Commission on Homelessness and Poverty and make sure that they're connected to the larger national network. And that comes alongside the efforts of a number of states, Washington, Minnesota, and a number of others, to really catalog the responsibilities and rights that homeless youth have and how they can use the law to help get stability. In criminalization, we're thrilled to also have supported an effort with Melville and with the Tao Foundation to support the Coalition for Juvenile Justice and the National League of Cities to identify what the principles are that communities should implement around reducing the interaction between the juvenile justice system and youth homelessness. So the Coalition for Juvenile Justice and its partners have put out the principles for change. They are located on their website. And the National League of Cities has helped think about how to implement them. And that is for other organizations like the National Council on Juvenile and Family Court Judges is about to put out principles on how their judges should be looking at the issue of youth homelessness. On public system responsibility, which is really code for what do we do about, specifically about minors and how they access a system of care. There's been a much more robust discussion about how to serve minors, not with a hodgepodge of resources, but actually with a system that provides services to them and their families. And obviously this relates to a lot of the other efforts that are going around the country, the 100-day challenges, as well as the youth homelessness demonstration projects. Under employment, there was a robust discussion about barriers to employment, the issue that juvenile records and young adult criminal records can have on keeping youth and young adults out of housing, and how to address that. There has been some work at the federal level, and a lot of guidance has now been sent out to start reducing that impact and reducing the impact that collateral consequences of the juvenile justice system have on youth who end up homeless. And of course in education, and I'll talk about this in a couple of minutes more, but a significant focus on what can be done at both the secondary and post-secondary level, including the huge opportunity that the Every Student Succeeds Act offers for addressing both youth homelessness itself, as well as improving the education and life outcomes of youth who are experiencing homelessness. In terms of next steps, there again are ongoing discussions. Away Home America obviously has been involved and will continue to be involved. Discussions with the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness and the American Bar Association about what would help the field move forward on law and policy efforts, either at the state level or, again, administrative actions that federal agencies can take. And we're always open to ideas. So with that, I will kick it over to my colleague, Katie Hong.
Great. Hi, everybody. This is Katie Hong from the Rakes Foundation. I'm really proud to talk about Voices of Youth Count, which is a national public-private initiative that is really designed to help various key stakeholders understand important questions about the prevalence and the nature of youth homelessness in this country. So specifically, this effort that's being led by Chapin Hall at the University of Chicago will really help us understand key questions like how many unaccompanied homeless and runaway youth are there in this country? What are their backgrounds and characteristics? Why do young people run away or become homeless? And once they run away, how do they get by and how are they doing? And so it will, I think our hope is that it will really help us get updated information around kind of the scope and the nature of this problem, and at the same time it will also help shed light on kind of key path and key action steps forward, including better understanding, what is the evidence say in terms of interventions that are out there, what's working, what's not, and how are we currently spending our dollars, both at the federal and statewide level, and in what ways are the experiences of unaccompanied homeless and runaway youth influenced by local, state, or federal policies. So it's an ambitious project, and it's a major partnership, and as you can see from this slide, there are a number of private philanthropic organizations that are involved, and HUD, as a public funder, is also a major investor in this effort, so we're super excited about it. The next slide just begins to outline just the mixed methodology for this effort. As I mentioned, these are pretty big, ambitious questions to answer, and so Chapin Hall, in their wisdom, basically said we need a mixed methodology to be able to look at this. One of their major components of their approach is going deep in 22 partner communities, and as you can see from this slide, it's a mix of urban, suburban, rural communities where this past year they basically worked very deeply in these local communities to help them understand what is the prevalence and kind of nature of youth homelessness in their community, and so all of this will roll up, and the next slide also then shows the other components of the study. So it is, the count on the upper left-hand corner is one component of the study, but this will also include household surveys, surveys of young people, surveys of providers. It also will include a much more in-depth kind of qualitative focus groups, interviews with young people, as well as a systematic review of the intervention evidence that's out there, as well as other policy kind of and fiscal review. And so where we are is that we are hopeful that Chapin Hall will be able to finalize this study and come out with some findings this summer. And as one of the funders in this effort, I think we're the most excited about what we could do with the actual findings. So once we have a number and an estimate and some ideas for kind of next steps forward, how do we then use that information as funders and as other stakeholders, Away Home America and others, to say, now what do we do with this, and how do we actually use this information to outline and execute against the national campaign to end youth and young adult homeless. So again, the timing is around sometime this summer is kind of when we're expecting the results of this study, and so look forward to be able to kind of analyze and share and discuss some of the findings once it's out. And then I think I am actually turning this back to my colleague, Casey, who's going to be talking about the national campaign to address student homelessness.
Great. Thanks, Katie. I promise this will be the last time anybody kicks it back to me. We last year, along with a number of other funders, funded the development of a report called Hidden in Plain Sight that you can see on your screen. Our hope with this report that focused on homeless students in America's public schools was to inject the issue of homelessness into the mainstream education conversation. We felt that too long there had been kind of an echo chamber about homelessness, as if these were separate students, without the realization that homelessness among students overlaps with a lot of the other education issues that are being discussed in education reform, the school-to-prison pipeline, education equity, the dropout crisis, as well as a number of other issues, as well as lost in that discussion was what we believe is a incredible opportunity for schools to be a hub for addressing youth homelessness, in that students are often identified early by schools. They're required to be identified by schools. Teachers, coaches, and others see students slipping into homelessness, and often can, if the resources are available, refer students and their families to resources early on in a way that prevents or intervenes early in the experience of homelessness. Our focus obviously is on older youth, on unaccompanied youth, though this report did talk about the full spectrum of student homelessness. That report, which was put out by Civic Enterprises, who had worked for a long time on the dropout crisis, and also by America's Promise, which had been working on a campaign for a long time called Grad Nation, caught the eye, we think, of a lot of people who hadn't been aware of how extensive the crisis of student homelessness has been, and ultimately went out to media sites in a way that we think captured the attention of education reformers and others, and housing providers that maybe hadn't been focused on this issue. On social media, it reached 2.4 million social media accounts, and again, using actual research methodologies, this was one of the most, I think it actually was the most extensive survey of students who had experienced homelessness, as well as educators working with them. On the heels of that, this also was picked up by the Department of Education and referenced in their guidance. The outgoing education secretary was very excited about this effort, and continues to be interested, as well as the previous secretary, Arnie Duncan. The follow-up to that is an effort that's still being developed by Civic Enterprises, America's Promise, and others, and it's co-funded by us and some other foundations, and it has multiple prongs to it. Really, the first prong is to bring homeless students into the public consciousness and awareness, and that's an effort that I think can build upon all of the information that came out and hidden in plain sight. And then second, critical to doing anything about this crisis is to improve identification of both children and youth experiencing homelessness. Even though there is a federal mandate to identify homeless youth within schools, the identification varies from place to place significantly, and the enactment of Every Student Succeeds and stronger protections around that and stronger requirements on schools mean that we have a great opportunity in states and within districts to do something more about this. The national effort that's being put together will also actively work with schools themselves to help the students stay in school by improving the implementation of that federal policy, use better early warning systems, and elevate the use of early warning systems to address both homelessness itself, as well as to prevent those students from dropping out. And critically, again, this is not just about helping students graduate. This is about ending the experience of homelessness. So the effort will be focused on increasing the availability of and connection to supports outside of school for homeless children, youth, and families. Also related to that, actively working with schools, communities, and early childhood programs to increase efforts at all levels of the pre-K through 16 system. And then finally, this is an effort which will also focus on making sure that those students actually get a quality post-secondary credential. I think folks on the call or on the webinar are very aware of the increasing statistics pointing out how many students in college, and specifically in community colleges, are experiencing homelessness. How many homeless students never even get to post-secondary education. And so obviously to prevent homelessness from recurring, getting a post-secondary education credential is often critical, and so this effort will focus specifically on that. We are co-funding this with Youth Hope, an effort out of Wisconsin, and other funders are considering joining, and I'm happy to answer more questions about that effort, but the hope is that both schools, through this effort, schools will be and their communities will be better connected, more empowered to actually address youth homelessness as it arises, as well as doing a much better job in supporting students in their schools as well as their families so that they can actually get to walk across the stage at graduation. And our estimates look like about half of homeless students are not experiencing that walk across the stage, and this effort is intended to address that as well as make sure that homelessness doesn't follow them into later life. So with that, I will pass it over to Ann Morin.
Hi, so I'm Ann Morin from Butler, and I'm going to talk to you about the FUP FSS demonstration project. Next slide, please. As we get started, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, that everybody knows what FUP and FSS are. So my apologies if you already know this, but FUP or the Family Unification Program, provides housing vouchers to both youth and families. FUP is the only HUD program that explicitly targets youth aging out of foster care. While the vouchers do not have a time limit for families, they have been limited for youth. They are currently 36 months. Up until last summer, they were only 18 months. FUP has to work in tandem with the local child welfare agencies to provide referrals and supportive services for the youth. FSS, or the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, is an employment and savings incentive program intended to help families and youth become more economically stable. Families apply to participate in FSS and sign a 5-year contract. In addition to the housing voucher, FSS provides coaching and case management through the development of an individual training and services plan, which can include education, job training, employment counseling, etc. The savings incentive is an interest-bearing escrow account. Any increases in rent due to increased income are credited to the account, and the family can leave with the funds when they graduate from the program. Apparently, an average amount to leave with is about $6,500. Next slide, please. So the FUP FSS demonstration project is designed to see how they can get this program to work better for youth. I think it's fair to say that it's been a fairly underutilized program for youth, in part because of the prior 18-month time limit. It was just so short, and nobody thought they could really get the youth stable in that amount of times, and it didn't work very well for lease rentals and school years. So the project is designed to test if combining the FUP with the FSS will result in more stable housing and better assist the youth in becoming self-sufficient. Under the demonstration project, the youth FUP voucher is extended to 5 years, the same length as the FSS contract. Now, youth, if they already happen to have a FUP voucher under the now 36-month time period, they can elect to sign an FSS contract and extend the length of their voucher for 5 years. In all of this, the Public Housing Authority and the child welfare agencies continue to coordinate on referrals to the program and on services. So the demonstration goals are to provide housing stability for youth aging out of foster care, to expand opportunities to become self-sufficient and transition to independent living, increase access to FUP for youth, strengthen the partnerships between the public child welfare agencies and the public housing authorities, and to increase coordination with community efforts to establish the coordinated assessment system, and just build the knowledge base of promising practices. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this demo did not really have a hard start date. You know, the NOFA went out last summer, and in order to participate, communities simply had to have both a FUP program and an FSS program, and then they had to have their FSS contract approved by HUD. So it really got started in about January, when most of them had their FSS contracts approved. There are about 50 communities who are participating. They're all across the country. Last fall, Annie E. Casey and Melville and Butler participated in a meeting with HUD, Labor and Education to discuss how to support the demonstration project. And the Department of Education is supposed to have a lot of funds available to bring technical assistance, but at that meeting they said the funds weren't going to be available until about June, and that they were going to be putting out applications for the technical assistance in about March. That hasn't happened. We're trying to get updates on what's happening with the Department of Ed money, but it's not really clear at this point where that much larger pool of money is going to come from. But since the ed money was not going to be available until at least 6 months after the real start of the demo, Annie, Casey, Melville, and Butler thought it was important to provide some more immediate technical assistance to the communities. So jointly we gave a grant to CSH to create a learning community for the participating jurisdictions. We wanted to help them answer some of the most immediate questions and concerns that they were facing as they ramped up. In preparation, CSH has surveyed the communities and is doing focus groups with youth to learn about their current experiences with the program and what type of help the communities thought would be most useful. They've set up a scheduled webinars to address some of the topics raised. Some of them are on the screen, but how best to adapt the FSS to youth, how to improve the referral system between child welfare and the housing authorities. In the past, the lack of referral was one of the principal reasons that FUP was not used for youth. Housing issues, we all know that housing use are different. How do you find landlords that will rent to youth? How do you educate the youth on being good tenants? How do you educate the landlords on dealing with younger tenants? And then there's just a question of what are the appropriate supports for youth and the best way to help them get on their feet. So CSH just held the inaugural webinar for the learning community, and it's launching a LinkedIn site to connect all the participants. And we're really hoping that the learning community will help these communities figure out how best to use the FUP and the FSS program to support youth to get them on their way. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you everyone. So as you can see, there's a lot happening across the country. And one of the goals of the Youth Network moving forward is really to keep you informed about what's happening and to connect you with people that can provide some more information. So all of the funders you just heard from were members of Foundations for Youth Success and are members of the Youth Network. So we'll make sure to keep you up to date on what's happening with all of these projects. We'll also be sharing some information after this webinar. In addition to the slides and the recordings that Lauren mentioned, we'll be sharing contact information for everyone you heard from and some additional resources on each of these topics. So now I want to open it up to questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the question box or the chat box, and we will start off.
So Jennifer, one question that we have, and this is actually a really great one, is so we're starting to explore what it means to partake in advocacy efforts as a foundation. What are some ways we can engage in advocacy and specifically around youth homelessness? And I think Amanda, our CEO, I think she's on the line, and this might be a good question for her to answer since this is some things that we've been working on as well.
Sure, and I know Megan from Away Home America can help with this. So we've been very engaged with Away Home America in supporting their policy priorities and making sure philanthropy has a voice at the table, not just around youth homelessness, but all homelessness. But particularly around youth homelessness, we feel there's a real opportunity to demonstrate all the activities that we just talked about on this webinar are happening at the local level. They're being led with philanthropy and people working at the local level to leverage public dollars, and that's a really important message for this new administration to have. We've put out some guidance for our members around ways that they can be engaged in advocacy. It's on our transition website, and we'll be happy to send that out. But I think the most important things that philanthropy can do is first talk to your grantees and engage with them and see what they're most concerned about. The more information we can have about how proposed cuts or new opportunities will affect people at the local level, the better we can do in communicating our concerns around that, especially our concerns around philanthropy's role in filling in, or the ability to fill in any gaps if proposed cuts happen at the congressional level, or cuts that are being proposed in the current president's budget. We've been encouraging, as people are taking part in town halls, to think about how philanthropy can convene their grantees and community partners to have town halls with their congressional leaders, specifically around homelessness. And I think this uniquely applies to youth homelessness and bringing in youth involved, to talk about what is working and what are opportunities for the future, as well as what they're concerned about with some of the things that have been happening with Congress as well as the administration. There's also opportunities to write op-eds and communicate the value of public-private partnerships, and we can help with targeting certain publications, with writing, and with using your voice to communicate that value. Megan, anything else?
I would just reiterate the joint messaging. I think that we, here shortly on the Way Home America site, will share more broadly a set of message points that we expect will resonate with the current Congress and potentially administration. And I think funders are in a really good position to strengthen those messages and to amplify them. Things like, we know that this can be done. Here's all the progress that we've made in veteran homelessness. Let's continue those strategies with youth and young adults, knowing that the exact responses might be different, that public-private partnerships, as you mentioned, are so critical, and that philanthropy can't do it alone. We have to use those federal dollars to really leverage local leadership. So I think some of the messages like that, philanthropy is in a really good position to get out loud in a variety of ways.
Great, thank you. We have time for just a couple more questions, and then we'll try to get you out on time. But another good one is, since a lot of these initiatives are very nationally focused, and this is for all panelists, how can we get involved in any of these initiatives if we only work locally? Are there opportunities for us to participate or to bring this to a local level? And I'll open that up to any of the panelists.
This is Casey. I would just say that certainly the national homeless education effort is focused on making progress through states and local districts. So if folks are interested in connecting state efforts to that national effort, I'm happy to connect them to that effort. The work can't be done at the national level alone, even though that work is being coordinated there. The work is really to engage with states and local districts and providers there to make a change. So they will be selecting at least 5 states and 10 additional school districts to work with, and I'm happy to connect folks. Similarly, I think all of the work that I described through the American Bar Association is focused on state policy, and they're interested in connecting the states where there is some momentum.
This is Amy.
Megan, I'll add a...
Oh.
Go ahead, Amy.
I was going to give you a plug, Megan, so.
Plug away.
This is Amy from Melville. I think there's so much action going on at the local level around youth homelessness, a lot that Megan has outlined, and I think that there are opportunities. If your community had applied for the youth demo and didn't get it, you may be able to apply for a 100-day challenge. You may also be able to participate in the dashboard that Megan is looking for volunteer communities to help and to create a dashboard around the country. So there's lots of, I think a good way to kind of get involved at the national work, even as a community, is through Away Home America and contacting Megan through that. So that was my plug, but Megan, you can be more specific if you'd like.
My thoughts exactly. I think the dashboard work in particular and the 100-day challenge work are 2 great spotlights. So if the community that you're involved with is involved in those efforts, that will be a way to really direct attention directly, locally, and lifting up what's working there. So great.
This is Anne on the FUP FSS demo. I can give to Lauren to post a list of the communities, but if your community is participating in it, I'm sure they would welcome support, because the demonstration did not come with any money. It did not provide any further FUP vouchers or any further dollars for supportive services. So I'm sure that the local communities would be very interested in partnering to see if there's a way that they could have private support to help figure out the best way to make the program work.
Awesome, great. Well, it is 2:01, so we'll go ahead and we will conclude this webinar. I just, again, wanted to thank you, the panelists, for all the awesome information. That was a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure that our attendees are grateful for that. As we mentioned, we have recorded the webinar, so the webinar and the slides will be available to our Funders Together members on our website, and we will do a follow-up email that will have all this information as well as the contact information for the panelists and some more information about the initiatives that were talked about today, and along with any resources. Additionally, if you be sure to check out our events page, that's where you can find the Cleveland site visit information, and also for any more upcoming events and webinars, including our Funders Institute, which is happening this July. So we definitely hope to see you there. But again, thank you for your time. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and enjoy the rest of your week.